Welcome to episode 28 of The Pulpiteer. I'm your host, Eric Hepburn, and I'm glad to have you join us for today's episode. Today's podcast is entitled Presence. This week is part live recording, and it is inspired by our Soul Matters theme for December. We'll begin with a reading from Pima Chodron, delivered by Pat Berthold.
You could ask what would be a good use of my life, thinking the answer is going to be a career choice or something. But I would say the most important thing is using your life to train in being present, in being here with an open heart, synchronizing your mind with your body, having them be in the same place at the same time with a brave, honest, but also gentle attitude towards yourself and towards what you see.
A brave, honest, but also gentle attitude towards yourself and what you see. I want to share a few other brief quotes from our packet this month just to get us in the feeling of things. This one from Jack Cornfield. Most of us have spent our lives caught up in plans, expectations, ambitions for the future, in regrets, guilt, or shame about the past. To come into the present is to stop the war. This one from Alan Watts. Stop measuring days by degree of productivity and start experiencing them by degree of presence. And this last one from Richard Rohr. We cannot attain the presence of God because we're already totally in the presence of God. What's absent is awareness. So presence is one of those words, a bit like God or love. It encompasses so much that often when we mention it, we're not quite sure what we're talking about. So what I want to start with this morning is focusing in on what I think the heart of presence is. And then I want to talk a little bit about what I think are some of the biggest blockages from us showing up in that way. So I'm going to suspect, given the time and the climate and the culture, that everyone here has plenty of experiences being way up in their head about something. Can I see a show of hands if this is a familiar experience? Okay, cool. Just doing a reality check. I want to make sure I'm not projecting on y'all. So, when we get up in our head, the lazy river that is usually our flow of stream of conscious thought turns into a raging rapids, and our awareness is flowing along with that water in all its tumult. Right? One thought leads to the next thought. Often we can feel the turbulence as anxiety. But our one thought flows into the next thought, and into the next thought, into the next thought, and the whole time we can feel the energy, the jangly energy of anxiety ratchet up and up and up as our mind tumbles and tumbles and tumbles in the ferment of our thoughts. Now, there's another thing that happens to us where we get way up in our feelings, so overwhelmed by the emotion of the moment that we can't feel anything else but that one intense feeling. What I want to suggest about presence is that it is a gateway out of both of those things, but a gateway that opens on a path that some of us tend to explore the least. When we were together a couple weeks ago, we did a basic body scan. And that body scan was a meditation technique to help bring your awareness into your body. You see, the body is the pathway to presence. When you're way up in your head or way down in your feelings, you can't feel your body. But grounding yourself in your body is a pathway to return you to calm awareness. So a body scan is one basic meditation technique or awareness technique that can help you re-ground yourself. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes just for a minute and go there with me. The easiest way to start is to give some attention to your breath. We're going to draw a little square with our breath. We're going to breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, breathe out for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds. Draw the square 3 times. Now there's a place that we're going to go from here. We talked about that raging river of thoughts when they get going and how they sweep our presence, our awareness along with them. There is another form of meditation, and it feels a little something like this. You're all Texans, so I'm going to assume that you have been to a clear flowing stream with a rocky bottom before. And when the stream is relatively shallow, you can go and sit in the middle, anchor your bottom to the rocky floor, and let the water flow around you. This is the meditation where our thoughts are the water and we let them come and go. You see, our presence isn't flowing with the stream. It is sitting still, and the water is the thoughts. So our thoughts come into our field of awareness. We don't try to capture them. We let them flow back out of our field of awareness. Now, on a calm day, this is pretty easy to sit still for a moment until a really interesting thought comes along, and then you find you're downstream again. But this is the basic practice where we learn a crucial thing about ourselves, that we are not what we think. We are the awareness that is aware of what we think. It ends up that the older philosopher was wrong, and we are not just because we think we are. But we're going to go with Sartre on this one. The I am that thinks is not the I am that is aware of thought. It's a different layer of consciousness, a different level. And so we can allow the thoughts that come up in our minds to flow from future to past while we remain grounded. Now, the practice of meditation over time, of this particular type of meditation, is kind of like this. As you get better at being present, your connection to the rocky bottom grows. And we might think of it like this. The earth comes up to meet us in that moment. And as we deepen our practice, we find we're not sitting on a bunch of stones, we're sitting on one large stone. And as we deepen our practice, that stone continues to grow and rise as if it were alive, bringing us out of the water. Now, you all know what happens here in Texas when it rains a lot. That stony riverbed that we were sitting in might become quite dangerous if we're just standing or sitting in the middle of it. But not if we've built a promontory to sit upon. We meditate when we don't need it, so that it's there when we need it. We build the rock that comes up out of the stream through our meditation practice. And when we sit on that rock in calm times, we can feel through our sits bones and through our connection to the earth, the water of thoughts and feelings that flow past us. But when hard times come, and the rain falls, and the creek swells, and the chaos begins, we aren't swept away if we have a practice. We aren't swept away because the tumult is hitting the rock and not our body. The rock that we have built through our practice. It's not a disconnection from the flow, you see, because when you are sitting there, you can feel through your body, through your bottom. You can feel the thrumming of the waters against the rock that you have built. You are not out of touch with your thoughts and feelings, but you are no longer their subject. They are your subject. Eckhart Tolle says something I like about the stream of thoughts. He says, they're all just old, conditioned mind patterns. It's a little abstract, but they're habits. Many of them were taught to us by a culture that we've come to think isn't quite as wise as we hoped. Maybe some of the habits aren't the good kind. But when we identify with our own thoughts, we tend to beat ourselves up for having those thoughts come up because we think that we are those thoughts. So you have a sexist thought or a racist thought or an unkind thought or a judgmental thought. What does the meditation practice teach us about those things? First, it teaches that that thought that you had is not who you are. The second thing that it teaches is that giving that thought extra attention simply feeds energy to it. It causes it to persist. That which we resist persists. So the most appropriate answer to an unkind thought, an unwise thought, an unworthy thought, is simply to deny it your attention. To simply let it pass as the flotsam and jetsam of your mental life that it is. You see, the ability to notice is what we would call spiritual discernment. We know what it feels like to make a decision with our cognitive mind. I've got my pro and con list, wrote it all down, weighed it in the balance. Now I'm going to choose. I choose a course of action. We know what it's like to make a choice from that emotional space. This is what my feelings tell me I have to do. That's what I'm going to do. Some of us have even probably had experiences where our bodies choose and seem to cut out all the rest of it. I'll tell you a story about my experience of that. I was in my early 20s, in my first marriage, and we were riding a motorcycle back from my first wife's parents' house to our home, and the accordion happened. The wave of brake lights coming toward us, and the next thing I know, the motorcycle's laying down and sliding into the median. Now, I don't know what happened. I mean that most sincerely. I have no memory. But I had 3 eyewitnesses come up and tell me that when my wife fell off the back of the motorcycle, I jumped up on top of the motorcycle as if it were a skateboard, jumped off it backwards, and ran to pull her out of traffic before the rest of the cars got there. So, our body can act all on its own. It doesn't need the rest of us sometimes in real moments. So, we can act from those 3 places. But what we are here in church to cultivate is the 4th option. What we come here for is to find our pathway to the 4th option, which is where spiritual discernment becomes enabled and empowered to help us make the important choices in our lives. What does that look like? What does that feel like? One of the most important aspects of it is that it feels like you have access to your body, your feelings, and your thoughts, with none of those things driving. I'm not suppressing my feelings. I am aware of my feelings. I am not clinging to thoughts. I am recognizing which of my thoughts are worthy of attention, which ones have the echo of wisdom, to use some language from our Soul Matters packet this month. Which of those thoughts shimmer? Shimmer is a good word for what spiritually activated things might feel like to us. Which parts of my body are shimmering when I'm sitting on the rock in the stream, recognizing that I'm at one of those inflection points in life where what I choose might matter deeply to me, to my friends, to my family, to the healing that the world needs. Abundance is not the money you have in your bank account, the trophies on your shelf, the letters after your name, the list of goals reached. Abundance is your connection to each breath. How sensitive you are to every flicker of sensation and emotion in the body. It is the delight with which you savor each unique moment, the joy with which you greet each new day. It is the freshness of each morning, unencumbered by memory or false hope. It is your rootedness in the present moment, knowing that you are always home, no matter what happens. It is you before every sunrise, fresh, open, and awake. You are rich, friend. You are rich. Jeff Foster. I want to close today with an attempt at this kind of meditation and a moment for reflection on this. So it's cold outside today. Always a nice time to think of the better parts of summer and springtime in Texas. So I want you to picture your favorite spot, your favorite Clearwater stream. Maybe it's not even in Texas. Maybe it's one from a childhood far away from here. And we're going to walk out into that stream. You're going to feel the cold water on our ankles, the slippery rocks under our feet. We walk around a little bit, just feeling it. And then we notice there's a moment where this place calls to us. A moment where we can feel the river inviting us to sit down. And we do. And it's cold. But we get used to it. Okay, here I am. I'm in the river. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping. I had almost forgotten how beautiful it is to just be in nature quietly. The sound of the water running down the stream. That burbling, murmuring sound. Reminds us that there was a womb older than our mother's womb. But we know we didn't come here just to sit and enjoy this. We've got a little work to do here in this time and space that's been granted to us. We've got a little work to do because the sunny day won't last. The clear weather will break. Storms will come, and like the squirrels, we need to put away some stores for the winter. We can feel the life in our toes. Feel the life in our fingers. We let the thoughts and feelings flow with the water around us and connected to us, but not truly what we are. We draw a slightly larger square. 5 seconds of in-breath. Hold for 5. Out for 5. Hold for 5. Somehow in this quiescence, we remember that we're safer than we think we are. That from this place of quietness is where our most powerful reactions to evil will originate. That the universe and Gaia and our communities will whisper to us in this quiet place of what is needed from us for the healing of each other and ourselves and our community and the world. Our love is one of the few things that's left to us in this quiet place where we allow everything else to flow by. Until next time, thank you for joining us on The Pulpiteer. The Pulpiteer podcast is a production of the San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Georgetown, Texas. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can make a donation at sangabrieluu.org/give. You can also like, subscribe, and review the podcast, all of which are important forms of support. The podcast is hosted by Spotify, and theme music is by John Faber. Our live recording tech crew is Frank Sanders, Rob Berthold, Keith Hutchinson, and Andrea McDaniel. Special thanks this week goes out to the folks at Soul Matters. The podcast is produced and performed by Eric Hepburn. See you in 2 weeks.